Hi, my name's Stephen Garside and I'm a web developer based in Halifax in the UK. Today I want to talk about a concept called BrAIn and really pose a question to businesses. Are you building your BrAIn or even considering it? Hopefully after this presentation you'll have more of an idea what a BrAIn is and how to potentially implement it in your business. So what we're going to talk about, a bit of an overview of BrAIn, how you're going to use that within your business. How do we connect to it? Something called an intent interpreter, which is the key. And then a concept called intent processing. A little bit about knowledge security, so who you're going to share the information with and how to lock that down. Something about around how you're going to feed your brain, what information are you going to expose through it. And then finally, we'll see an example of a BrAIn in action, a BrAIn that I've written. So what do we mean by a BrAIn? This sentence sums it up really. It's a knowledge architecture that securely interprets and distributes business intelligence to people, software and IoT. Who's going to use your BrAIn? So we've got some examples that you would expect. We've got customers, employees, general public, potentially shareholders, and some that you're probably not expecting to see. We've got competitors in there. They may access information through a chatbot, for example, questioning pricing, questioning product information, that type of thing. So it's something to be aware of. And then we've got customer systems as well, might interact with it. How do we connect to the BrAIn? So there's lots of ways of connecting. Some of the most obvious ones: chatbots, voice interfaces, IoT, so it could be a kiosk in a shop, internal business systems perhaps, websites, services, and then one of my favourites, which is VR bots, and that's where in a virtual reality environment you might want to interact with that environment using a chatbot. So that's something potentially for the future. We then move on to something called the intent interpreter. So this is taking the questions, trying to understand what the user is asking in order to then channel that request to the right place. So we're going to cover that shortly. And the intent interpreter really is key. Once you understand what the user's intent is, you've got it, you've cracked it really. So understanding intent is everything. And to give an example, so there's lots of software out there to understand intent. I use some software called Dialogflow from Google. It's absolutely superb, really recommend it. So we've got an example: a customer's asking, they want to buy a gate. If we can understand that they're wanting to buy that gate, we then know that we need to know how many they want, what length that gate might be, and the colour. So we've got a few examples there. So once we've understood the user's intent and we've got that bit of information, so we know how many they want, what the length is and the colour, we can then pass that information on down the chain to the BrAIn. So the next key part of the process is the intent processor. Now this could be something like a web API or a WCF service, which takes the intent in and then proxies that to the relevant services. So as an example, we've got a chatbot window, for example, customers saying, I want to buy a gate. The intent interpreter understands they want to buy a gate and derives the extra information required to fulfill the intent. That information is then passed on to your intent processor, which knows, it doesn't know how to solve the intent, but it knows where to go looking. So this particular intent knows it needs some information from a product service and a pricing service, which it can then wrap up in a data package and pass back down the chain, and which ends up in a response to the consumer. So that's just one example of an end-to-end process there. So a little bit about security. So obviously you're exposing this information out there through all these different devices, but you might want to lock some of the intents down to only certain systems or certain users. So here we've got an example of some intents. The intent to buy a gate, we might be happy to expose that to any calling device or person. However, something like an inventory check, you might want to restrict to an internal system perhaps, or an employee, or maybe just expose it through a voice interface to customers. And then something even more sensitive like a price inquiry in your organisation, you might choose to lock that down just to internal systems. So by linking the intent to security and roles, it gives you that option to be able to tie things down should you choose. So what do you feed your BrAIn? So we've got some examples here, some obvious examples. We've got product data, transactional data, questions and answers, for example. Those are the obvious things. But then you can also feed it digital assets like images, PDF documents, videos. We've got machine learned models in there. So rather than business logic, traditional business logic, you might have a machine learned model that has got answers to certain questions given known inputs. So you could tie them in. And then right down at the bottom we've got something called rich content. Now this is CSS, HTML, so chunks of rich content that you're going to serve back through the BrAIn. We're going to see a demonstration of that next. So let's see a BrAIn in action. So I wrote a BrAIn for a company called www.360jungle.com. They offer virtual reality tours online. Now their BrAIn's exposed through Amazon Alexa and Amazon Alexa skill, also through Google Home device. The same BrAIn is exposed through a chatbot on the Facebook page. And then they've got a particularly nice feature called Interact, which I wrote for them, and we're going to do a demonstration of that now, and hopefully this shows just how powerful this stuff is. So let's have a demonstration. So rather than traditionally navigating the website through the menu, this pulls information into a stream, so it's like a chatbot on steroids. So if we say, for example, tell me some news, the chatbot goes off, pulls rich media back from elsewhere in the website and injects it into a stream, and this is all going via the BrAIn. So I can have a look at a news article there and then go back and maybe ask another question. So I might say, tell me about your products, and off it goes to the BrAIN, checks the product service and brings back the products that are offered. So if I say, tell me about your basic package, off it goes again, gets back some more rich media, injects it into the stream. All this information is available throughout the website, but it's pulling it interactively into my chat. And it's also spotted a call to action here as well, so I'm going to say yes to that. It's asking me if I want to sign up, and again now it's got an instruction from the BrAIN about where to redirect the user to, and it's got me there to the sign up page. So that's hopefully a really good demonstration of a BrAIN in action. So what else can you use it for? So some typical questions: tell me about product X, give me a price for service Y, how much inventory do you have of a certain product, what delivery options do you offer, maybe some pictures of products. So we've seen that actually in the stream there, just having images back off certain things. How do I install products, latest news, comparisons, so comparing one service to another. And maybe on an internal personal assistant, how do I process a particular type of transaction if it's a new employee, for example. And then another one, what were the sales of X product yesterday, might be another typical example. So that's it. So hopefully, to summarise, we talked about customers, employees, shareholders, people who might use your BrAIN. Then we've got the devices that may interact with it. We've got the intent interpreter, so dialogue flow. As I mentioned, you could write your own or use an off-the-shelf package. There's plenty out there. The intent processor, that's the part that does the proxying of the information and knowing where to go to get the information to fulfill the intent. A little bit about security and knowledge, tying that information down, and then details of what you might feed your BrAIN. So just to summarise, a knowledge architecture that securely interprets and distributes business intelligence to people, software and IoT. Hopefully that's been interesting for you. If you're interested in speaking about your thoughts, drop me a line at www.stephengarside.co.uk. That'd be great.